Okay, on this video, we're going to be going over tagging. Now, I know I've covered tagging in a couple, I think the first and second video, but I want to reiterate how important tagging is. And we're going to be going into a lot more detail here, as well as going into some more advanced functionality of tagging and why it's so important will become very apparent once you get through this video. So let's pull up a contact. I'm just going to click on my name right here. And that'll bring me into the contact field or the contact card. If you remember over here on the left-hand panel, down the bottom, we've got the action area, and this is where the tags are, right? Now, this is where you can create and add and delete tags to this person's account, right? And to delete it, you just click the little X. If you needed to create a brand new tag, let's say ABC tag, then you just type in the word that you want to use as a tag and then click it right there, and now it became a tag. But let's say that for some reason you've got duplicate tags, or you've got now you cannot have a true duplicate, but you could have something like final expense or FEX or final dash expense, and they all mean the same thing, right? So in a sense, they are a duplicate tag. So how do we fix those? Well, let's go in under settings. And then on the left-hand side, you've got tags, fourth up from the bottom. And here's a list of all the tags in your database. So if you needed to fix something, you could just search it out and type in ABC. And there's that tag. And you would click on it. And then you could do a bulk action and delete the actual tag. You could merge it. You could do all kinds of things. I'm just going to delete that tag because it is not needed. Okay. Now, if you notice, a lot of the tags that we use, the 0.01, 0.02, 0.03, these tags are numbered for a very specific reason. And you do not want to mess those up because these tags belong to either a funnel or they belong to a workflow, which is part of your automations. So please do not make any changes to a numbered tag, right? So let's look up the 0.01 ACA tag right here. I'm going to hit the go back button and I'm going to go to automation on the left-hand side. And it'll become very apparent why it's so important not to mess this tag up. So that tag is the 0.01 and it is under your brochure funnels. And you have a 0.01 right there. And this tag is what is added to this funnel, right? And this workflow. So it's really critical that you not mess this up because it's part of this automation. And if you change the automation, then the automation may not work properly. So this automation is when somebody fills out the ACA 0.01 ACA life change form, that's the trigger that launches this workflow. It creates a note, and we're just using the name of it right there, the name of the workflow, and then it sends an email, and we have to write the email. Then what we do is we wait for TCPA. And TCPA is the Telecom Protection Act, right? Telecommunication Protection Act. And this makes sure that you're only sending messages between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. You're not sending them at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And that would be bad. So we just want to make sure there's a time delay in here for TCPA. The next one is an SMS. And that is whatever message we want to put in there. And then we've got add a tag, and that's the tag. So this is how we know that the lead went through this specific workflow, is because it was tagged and it had a note on that person's profile. Click cancel there. The next one is an internal notification. An internal notification would go to the user that the contact was assigned to. So this email or notification would go to the user that it was assigned to the contact. The next one is create a contact or opportunity. So this means it goes onto the brochure funnel and goes on as a new lead, and then it has an opportunity name, and then it's got some custom values right here, and then some opportunity source, which is a UTM, which is a merchant tracking mechanism, right? So it's just a way for tracking where your leads came from. And we've got some custom fields for there. And then we've got the lead value and the select status. Okay, those I usually just leave blank. So if you did not have this tag, another workflow may not work properly, right? So you want to make sure that if it is a numbered tag that corresponds to either a workflow or a funnel, that you do not mess with that tag. You can delete any other tag that's a duplicate or whatever, but try not to mess with these tags because these tags are really important. Okay, these are what also launches these workflows. So let me show you from scratch how else you could use these tags. So let's clone this. I'm going to duplicate this workflow, and it's just going to call it copy. So now we've got a copy of it right here, and this way I don't mess it up. So instead of having the form, what we could do is we could use a tag as a trigger. And a lot of workflows use these types of tags. So you could tag it with that 01 and add a tag and then 01 life change, boom. And now contact tag would be the 01.01 ACA life change. So we know what it is. You can take off that life change form here. We don't need the form because we already have a trigger, and we don't need the trigger here. So we're going to delete that action because the tag is already added. So now what this will do is if anybody is tagged 0.01 ACA life change, then they'll go into this workflow. Well, why is this? Why would you use this? Well, let's say they didn't fill out a form or the contact is already in your database. Then you may want to trigger the workflow just by adding a tag to that person as opposed to having them fill out a form, right? So we would go to contacts and we would go pull up a contact, and then we would scroll down on the left-hand side, and then we would just add that tag 0.01, and there's the life change form. Now that tag is added, but the workflow is not turned on. The automation is not turned on, so I won't get added. So if you check the notes, nothing happened, right? So let's go over and we're going to turn that workflow on, and I'll show you how it works. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the brochure funnels, ACA copy right here. Now up in the top right-hand corner, there's draft and publish. So we have to publish it before we want it to launch. So to make it live or active, you have to publish it. So now this is a published workflow. So if anybody gets this tag, then that's going to launch this workflow. So go here, and I'm going to click on my name, and I'm going to add that tag. Scroll down to the bottom and add 0.01 ACA life change. And now, boom, you'll see right here, it just got sent out. Okay. Now, this doesn't have an email and it doesn't have a text message. It doesn't have a phone number, but it did attempt to do it, right? So you could see that right here. It's just the phone numbers and the email address isn't really hooked up. And if I go in under the notes, it'll have a second note, ACA life change form. And we know that that is the workflow that was triggered. So this is a great way, because we're leaving these notes on the workflow. It's usually the very first item in a workflow. Now we can track back if anything is broken, right? So let's go into the automation and I'll show you how you can also look up whether an automation is triggering properly. And I'll go into automation workflows. This is the one that's published. It has one total enrolled, which is the one I just added. And we've got up at the top, we have settings, enrollment history, and execution log. So let's go to the enrollment history right here. And you'll see that Jeff Wagner was enrolled and it's already finished. It's gone through all the steps. I can also go to the execution log, very much the same thing, except this is every step in the workflow, not just the when it was enrolled into the workflow. So this is every step, and it waited, make sure it was during the TCPA, then it sent out the next step and sent a text message and sent an internal notification and et cetera, right? So these are all the steps in this workflow, and it shows that, yep, it was added to the workflow, it executed, it was waiting, wait finished, executed, finished. So if any of these have an error in it, you'll be able to identify where your workflow is broken so you can go back and troubleshoot it if you need to, okay? Additionally, there's some additional things right here where you can go in and get some additional details about this. So when it was executed, things like that. So you may be able to track back some additional root cause analysis if it's not working properly. Let's go back to the builder. Now, if there sometimes things will get stuck in the TCPA, right? So let me show you what that looks like. And I'm going to put a very narrow parameter on here. And I'm going to make it, if it's not 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., it's not going to send. So I'm going to change this to 10 a.m. Click Save and click Save. Well, the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that because we're in testing mode, if I go into settings, I want to make sure that we have this allow reentry. Typically you would have this checked off, but because we're going to be doing some testing, I want to turn it on so I can use the same contact when I'm doing my testing. So turn on the reallow entry. Okay, so now we're all back. I'm going to go back to contacts. And I'm going to go back to my name right here. Scroll down to the tags. I'm going to delete this tag. Give it a second or so. And then I'm just going to add that tag back in, 0.01. Click there. And now let's see what happens. We have notes. And it went through again. So let's go back to the opportunity, or I'm sorry, the automation, and let's check that out. Brochure funnels, and now you see you've got two, one actively enrolled. So why is it actively enrolled? That's because that wait step has to wait until it hits 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning. Because it's outside, it's 4:30 in the afternoon, this is not going to launch until tomorrow at 9 a.m. It'll launch the rest of those leads. So if I click on this little icon right here, the person icon, it'll show you all the people that are actively enrolled in this step, right? And you can see where they are now. You can push them to the next step, or you can delete them out of this step. So this is a way that if you're doing some troubleshooting, or if some people seem like they're quote unquote stuck in a step, it's usually because of a wait sequence. And this is how you can identify whether the lead received your information. Hey, I know I put you into a workflow. Did you receive the email? Well, here's how you can figure out whether they received. I know they received the email, but they have not received the text message because of the TCPA wait rule that we have in place here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'm going to get it back to standard. I'm going to remove that, and usually takes a couple hours for that to goes on a batch. So just give it a few hours. If it'll be there, and we're going to change that back to 8 p.m. and save and save. So now we're back to clear, and your automation should be working. You see active enrolled is back down to 0 because it's been completed. Okay, so let's go back to the contacts here. And we're going to go back to my name. And you'll notice there's a bunch of different information here in the center. We've got, here's where the opportunity is updated. This just makes it a little bit easier for you to also know exactly what's going on with this contact. So this is typically the communication area. So you've got your email right there, notified by the little email icon. You also have some text messages that were sent out, and notice by the little message format bubble right there. But this is the opportunity was updated. So you can go to your opportunities, and it's under Medicare lead, and it was updated to that. Okay, so it's giving you little breadcrumbs to identify, hey, here's what's happening, and here's where it's happening in the CRM, so that you can track all of the movements of your leads. Now, it also added it to the brochure funnels. So let's check under the brochure funnels, and right here, and brochure funnels, there should be my lead right there. Okay, so that's a nice area where you can track not only the features of your workflows and the activities in your workflows, but also how you track the activities on a specific contact. And then if you make those notes in your workflows, all of our workflows have those notes, but if you create your own ones, then make sure you include notes, and this will be able to help you track things down when they break. All right, that's it for how to manage some of your automations.